1, verses 4 and 5. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Amen. I want to preach about the life and the light of men. Amen. I want you to repeat it after me. The life and the light of men. Amen. You may be seated. In this first chapter particularly, and yet this entire letter, this entire book, John strains to use the best imagery possible to describe that word. In the beginning was the Word. He uses whatever language he can use, whatever metaphors he can use to get us to understand that word. He begins with the word, but he moves to the life. And then he says the light. The word being logos, the intelligence of God. And then the life being zoe, and we'll talk about zoe. And then light being phos, where we get our word photosynthesis from. And because John wrote largely to unbelievers, particularly Gentiles, he uses metaphors that are both related to the Old Testament and many that are not related to the Old Testament. Messiah is an Old Testament term. When the Messiah comes. And so Matthew, Mark, and Luke uses Christ, Christos, the Greek form of the Hebrew form, Messiah. But John does not use Messiah when he opens his book. He uses Logos. Seed of Abraham and line of lineage of David. That is Hebrew terminology. But John doesn't use that Hebrew designation. He says in the beginning. The issue of creator is more than just a Jewish discussion. For every culture embraced the idea of a supernatural creator. You don't have to be Christian to believe that God, whatever you call him, created. Most folk in the world believe it didn't happen by happenstance. Psalm 24 makes it this way, says it this way: the fool had said in his heart, there is no God. And what that passage is really saying is, it's already in his heart that there is a God, but then he's a fool because he tells his heart, you're wrong. There's something innate within us that we know that there's someone greater than us. One of the first signs of life in a newborn baby is they cry out because they recognize they are not independent. They need somebody. And we never should graduate from our independence or our dependence on God. We recognize as babies we need someone, and so we reach for someone we can touch. But as we grow, we start realizing those whom we touch aren't strong enough. We need a God that's bigger than us. And so every culture believes in a creator. So John says, the creator in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And verse 3, he says, all things were made by him. Now these are bold statements that John is making, and for us who are familiar with this passage, we don't catch the depth of what he's saying. But John is saying to those cultures we would call pagan, that if you're looking for a creator, in the beginning was the Word. And all things were made by him. And then he says, and he is the life. Pagan cultures, you who think your gods are the gods that you should look to, I'm saying to you, the intelligence of God is Jesus the Christ. The Logos, the intelligence of God, with God, but he is God. We talked about that in Bible study. He has a separate personality with God, but he is one in essence. He's with God. He has a distinctive and separate work, but an identical mission. That's what makes the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit separate. They are one, but they are a tri-unity. Three personalities, but one person. Three in one. What makes them separate and distinct is that their work differs, but they are one because they have the same mission. That's what makes the church one. The church has many members, but one body. E pluribus unum, that Latin term adopted by our United States as its motto, that we are out of many one. It refers to a union formed by the separate states. Not a nation of walls, but bridges. And by bridges, I don't necessarily mean physical bridges, but mental and moral bridges that creates equity as well as equality. You see, equality symbolizes the idea of equal opportunities. Each person can live in a neighborhood of choice. That's equality. Every person can enroll in Harvard. Equality. But equity bears the idea of correcting areas of unfairness and injustice. Equality says that all of us can go to Harvard, but equity says that all public schools should be corrected so they can equip each student to qualify for Harvard. Equity says that those who do not attend Harvard will still have an opportunity to have a qualitative life. When the human body suffers, the human body understands the concept of equity. Your finger gets cut, and cell fragments called platelets and proteins causes coagulation in order to keep you from bleeding to death. It clots the blood. Now it doesn't go to every part of the body because that would be equality. But every part of the body that needs that is only the area that's been cut. So the area that's been cut needs something that the rest of the body doesn't need at the time. We play these games in America now of suggesting that all of us have equal opportunity and an equal chance, and we play the games with equality, but we don't want to offer equity. Don't tell me I've got an equal chance when you've not made everything equitable so that I can take advantage of the chance. Amen. Don't put me in a race. You start at the 40-yard line. I start at the starting line, and you talking about we both have a chance to win. Equality, because both of us can run the race, and both of us have a chance to win the race, but it's not equity because you have a 40-yard head start. The body does what it needs to do to make sure that equity is provided. And so the intelligence of God created a cosmos, an ordered world of equity. How was this performed? Well, this Logos was also our Zoe. In him was life. Zoe, where we get zoology. It is not just physical life, but quality of life. You see, the idea of Christ is not just that we would be survivors, but that we would have life and have it more abundantly. That we would be more than conquerors. Now, don't get it twisted. I ain't talking about money. Because you can have, Church of Laodicea, Jesus told them, you think you're rich, but you're poor. You think you're clothed, but you're naked. You can have money and still be poor. And then you can not have money and be rich. You can be out of prison and still be locked up. Because if your mind is in chains, you are still in prison. So Jesus has come so that no matter where you are from and who you are, you can have not just a life of surviving, but you can have a life of fulfillment. It's a quality of life. And so John suggests that the very intelligence that created the universe, y'all got to get this, this is huge. The very intelligence that created the universe is the same intelligence that can provide for us a qualitative life. That word in John chapter 1 verse 1 is the same word in John chapter 1 verse 4. That same word in John chapter 1 verse 3 is the same word that is the life and light of all men. You want to know where we get off track? We get off track because we keep him way up there, aloof and distant, so that he is the God up there, and we try to manage our lives down here while he's up there. That's why I'm so glad I don't hear as much as I used to in my childhood. Folks say the man upstairs. Who? Brother Walker? Can't be talking about God, the man upstairs, because he is immense. He is omnipresent. He's everywhere at the same time. God, who created the universe, is the same God who wants to give you a qualitative life. John 3:16 tells us that this life that he offers is not only qualitative, but it's everlasting. It is a perpetually qualitative life. Psalm 48 says, great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. For this God is our God forever and ever, and he will be our guide even unto death. You see, the Hebrews understood everlasting as not just being eschatological. That's that theological term that talks about the last days and the last things. They understood it as more than just that. They saw it as being from generation to generation. So when God said to Abram, I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you, and you shall be the father of a great nation, he understood that to mean everlasting. And David, understanding that the throne would be his forever, not him individually, but that it would be in his lineage, he was thinking everlasting. And so when we start talking about God being our guide, it is we are connected to the Creator. And then we pass that on to our generations following, so that he is our God forever and ever, and he will be our God even unto death. That's why it's so important that we remember that the Bible, the overwhelming majority of the Bible, is not for individuals. It's for cultures, for nations. You know, when God says, honor your father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. That's not for an individual, because that would suggest every person who dies young didn't honor their parents. We know that can't be true, because there's some scoundrels that's still alive. But God is saying, as a nation, you are to honor your father and mother. Now, honor there means to take care of when they can't take care of themselves. And so you ought to take care of your parents when they can't take care of themselves, because if you don't, your nation will be known to have a short mortality rate. Amen. It's forever and ever. And so this everlasting that John refers to in John 3:16 is an everlasting life that is a qualitative life that goes on forever and ever just by believing on Jesus Christ. Now again, we got to understand the meaning of words. Believe there is not intellectual assent. It is not somebody told me that and it makes sense, I believe it. It is total reliance on it. You know, you are exercising faith every time you sit on a pew. You just believe it's going to hold you up. I guarantee you, if I promised you that when you sit on it, it would collapse, you wouldn't sit on it. You exercise faith every time you come in this building that the ceiling won't collapse. Because I know for a fact that if I told you it was going to collapse, if I told you it was a 50-50 chance, it would be 100-0 chance you ain't coming. But yet, faith in God is, I have no other source but Jesus Christ. None of it. I don't have Jesus as an option. He's not one of the options in my multiple choice question. Jesus is my only solution. I am totally relying on him to meet my spiritual needs, and if he doesn't do it, it won't get done. You got to believe it enough to pass it on to our children, to our children's children, so that they can have an everlasting, qualitative life. He is the life. But the verse says, not only is he the life, he is the light. For in this world, this has to be painful to God. If it's not, I really want him to enlighten me on how it's not. That he created a world that rejects his order. That's unfathomable. That you it's worse than you creating a job so that you can hire somebody you love, and then after you create the job and hire them for them, they tell you, I don't like this job. And they choose to work the job away differently than the way you designed it for them. That's this world. This world has been created by the intelligence of God. He has ordered it as he wants it to operate. And this world continuously says, we want to do it another way. So this world is dark. Yes, sir. But Jesus knows how it should operate. Amen. He created it, and he knows how to operate it. Amen. And for those of us who totally rely on him, is found an everlasting qualitative existence. Amen. But in this dark world, most folk won't believe. It's dark out here. I said it's dark out here. Just turn on the news and there's darkness. Say, I'm sick of the news, and find something entertaining in darkness. Decide I ain't watching no TV, I'm going to social media. Darkness. I don't need no technology. I got folk I can talk to. They've already been trapped in the darkness, so they bring you into the darkness. It's just darkness everywhere. Darkness, dark ideas, dark concepts, dark morals, dark perspectives, just darkness. How do you escape the darkness? The text says he's not only the life, but he is the light. Many won't believe. Verse 5 says the world comprehends it not. The world doesn't even recognize the light. Isn't that blind? That you're in darkness and the light shines, and you are so captivated by the darkness you miss the light. But he is the light for this world to see. And he is the light that shines in the darkness. Our world is such a dark world. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4:4 that the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them that believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So the world is perpetually trying to make sure we miss the light. I believe in my heart. Can't prove it, but I believe in my heart that this whole government shutdown and this wall is really a distraction from something else. And while we are focusing our attention on what they want us to focus our attention on, we're being blinded from what's really happening. It's a smoke screen. That's what happens with entertainment. Entertainment will take something dark and putrid and make it funny. So that when you laugh at it long enough, you become desensitized to it. And when you become desensitized to it, soon you start accepting it. You can be presented a bad idea so long that soon you think it's normal. So the God of this world, in the Hebrew context, were the leaders in Israel. Paul's context referred to those who shaped the mindsets of the culture. Those who are the gods of this world today are those who establish the thought processes of our culture. Politics controlled by special interest groups, using entertainment to sell social concepts that are perpetuated in education and religion. And before long, we are sold to an idea that's destroying us. I dare you to read that passage in Romans again, where God turns them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are unseemly. Those things that are unseemly is not the sin. The sin is when they knew God, they didn't reverence him as God. And as a result, God turned them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are unseemly. That was the judgment. They carried out behavior that was self-destructive, but because they enjoyed it, they did it to the fullest. It's like putting sweetener on poison. And because it tastes good, you eat more of it. It's still poison. Do I have a witness here? You reject what's healthy for you because it doesn't taste good to you, but your minds have been so darkened, you will eat what destroys you because it satisfies your selfish ambition. So in this world of darkness, it's easy to be in dark. because everybody else seems to be. Jesus says, narrow is the way and straight is the gate that leads to everlasting life, but broad is the way that leads to destruction. The fact of the matter is, most folk are in darkness. All crowds aren't bad, but just because it's a crowd doesn't make it a church. Some crowds are corrupt, and they are masked for what is holy and what is righteous. Just because you don't have a big fan club doesn't mean God hadn't shown you favor. Some folk, God blesses you with their departure. Some folk, if they stay too long, they will make your environment dark and make you assimilate to darkness. Some folk have to leave because they are eclipsing the light. But he is the light, shining equitably on all men. Now this is so powerful because you can be poor and Jesus can show up, coming to his own, and his own received him not. With foxes having holes and birds of the air having their nests, but the Son of Man having nowhere to lay his head, and in your poverty you can see the light. But then you can be rich monetarily and see Christ as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He is the holy and blessed God who can call a legion of angels to rescue him if he wanted to, and they would come to his rescue. And you can see in him power, and you can see in him circumstance and purpose and the ability to do great things, and yet he does not take his power and take his circumstance and use it for himself. And in your wealth you can say, I can see the light. You can see him equitably wherever you are, because he is the light shining on all men, not just the rich, but not just the poor either. See how could it, that was the question that people had, how could the slave and the slave owner be praying to the same God? How could the slave and the slave owner be reading the same Bible? There had to be some conflict. There had to be two different gods. The reality is, God will help you see how blessed you are in your slavery. And the same God will show you how rotten you are in your slave ownership. And so he will humble the exalted and exalt the humble. Y'all help me here. You can see that light wherever you are. So it doesn't matter what side of town you live on. It doesn't matter what your economic status is. If you don't see the light, it's not because he's not shining on all men. It's because you've allowed yourself to assimilate to the darkness. Oh yes, there have been some bad situations I've been in and I've seen the light in it. And I found myself smiling even when folk think I should be crying. But that doesn't mean I'm begging God for more bad situations, because I've seen him in some good too. Do I have any feedback here? I've seen him when I've been blessed and noticed that in my blessing, God is there. I've seen it when it looked like the blessings have grown short, but he shows up and he is the blessing in the midst of what seems not to be a blessed circumstance, because he shows up wherever you are. He can show up at midnight in Philippian jail for Paul and Silas. He can show up at Calvary for Jesus on the cross. He can show up at the mountain of transfiguration. He can show up where he wants to show up, because he's the light shining on all men. So if you hadn't seen him, it ain't because they ain't shining. It's because your eyes have been blinded. But I want to tell you today, if you have seen the light, walk in the light. Beautiful light. Walk in the light, for he is the light. The light of the world. He is the bright and morning star. He is the Ancient of Days and the Infant of Days. He is a lamp to my feet and a light to my pathway. He is the Alpha and Omega. Walk in the light. Beautiful light. Come where the dewdrops of mercy shine bright. Shine all around us by day and by night. Jesus, the light of the world. If you see that light, walk in the light. Don't be ashamed to walk in the light, because you are few and far between. Walk in that light and be like Paul. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every man that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. I'm so glad I got that light in my view. Jesus is the light of the world. Hey, I know a whole lot of folk are rejoicing and shouting because they got a new car. And they rejoicing and shout because they claim they waiting on their breakthrough. But I rejoice because can't nobody do me like Jesus. Nobody do me like the Lord. Ain't he all right? I said, ain't he all right? Do you know him? Have you tried him? Is he the light that shines in your midnight? Is he the light that brings daybreak even when it's dark? Is he the light that when friends forsake you, you still have hope? When family misunderstand you, you still got joy. So that this joy I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. Do you know him? Have you tried him? Ain't he all right? Can you say yeah? Say yeah. Yeah. I know he's all right. I don't know about you, but sometimes just the mention of his name can make my day better. Nothing has changed on the outside, but like the choir song, I know him, and from the inside out, Jesus, all the world to me. My life, my joy, he's my all. Yeah, yeah. I dare you to just tell somebody, thank God for Jesus. That's what our foreparents meant. He'll make you feel rich when you ain't gotta die, because I'm not defined by circumstances. I'm not defined by resources, but Jesus is my everything. Bread in a starving land, water in desert country, leaning stick when your legs get feeble, hope and despair, joy and sorrow, peace and confusion, mother when you're motherless, father when you're fatherless, bridge over troubled waters, rock in a weary land, shelter in stormy weather. He is my everything. Ain't he all right? I said, ain't he all right? You don't need a whole lot of folk when you got Jesus. He's all I need. I'm glad I got the light. He's my everything. I can shout by myself. No choir, because I'm in my secret closet. But I got Jesus there. I found myself rejoicing. May not feel your best, but even if you don't feel good on the outside, he can heal you on the inside. Ain't got time to be mad at nobody. I got too much joy in Jesus. He's my life, my joy, my all. He gives me strength from day to day. Without him, I would fall. What I'm saying, if you ain't too proud, is there anybody here that ever gets sad? We try to hold it together, but when I get sad, to him I go. No other one can cheer me so. When I'm sad, he makes me glad. Y'all, he's my friend. Is he your friend? I said, is he your friend? I'm trying to give you a chance to testify. Is he your friend? If he's your friend, you ought to thank God for Jesus today. Praise God for a friend that's this closer than a sister or brother. Thank God Jesus is my friend. The privilege of the church is extended. The doors of the church are open. If there's one who's seen the light, and that light has drawn you to itself, in that light you will find qualitative life forever and ever. If there's one candidate for baptism, letter of Christian experience, the privilege is extended, the doors of the church are open. Won't you come?